Time for the market report. Harvest season getting underway.
In its early stages, and there's a lot more to go. We'll get into it and more. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then we check in with the USDA to find out the latest in U.S. crop progress. And finally, what are the biggest issues facing the row crop markets? An expert weighs in along with some weather predictions. So, markets closed trending slightly up, livestock going up while row crops split. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, lean hogs up nearly 4 cents, more than a 4% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, lumber down 54 bucks. That's nearly a 9% decrease from the previous week. So we're getting to the start of harvest season in the U.S., and although it's early, things are moving fast. So, how far has it gone and how do our crops look right now, at least for our major row crops? Here's the latest crop progress report by the USDA to tell us. In the 18 highest corn-producing states, dough stage, which is when the kernels accumulate starch and thicken, at 90%, 1% higher than this time last year, but 1% lower than the 4-year average. Dented stage, when the kernels start to form a dent at their crown due to starch amount and moisture loss, at 58%, the same as last year, and 2% lower than the 4-year average. Condition looking pretty good, with 65% reporting good to excellent. In the 18 highest soybean-producing states, Mississippi included, setting pods at 94%, 1% higher than this time last year, and the same as the 4-year average. Dropping leaves stage, which is when the plant sheds leaves before full maturity, at 11%, 1% lower than this time last year, but 1% higher than the 4-year average. Condition also positive, with 66% reporting good to excellent. In the 15 highest cotton-producing states, Mississippi also included, setting bolls stage, which is when the fertilized flowers turn into bolls, at 90%, 4% lower than this time last year, and 3% lower than the 4-year average. Bolls opening stage at 28%, 7% lower than this time last year, and 2% lower than the 4-year average. Condition not very encouraging, with 44% reporting good to excellent. In the 6 highest rice-producing states, once again, Mississippi included, harvest at 33%, 9% lower than this time last year, but 6% higher than the 4-year average. Condition quite positive, with 77% reporting good to excellent. So, with a little bit of context to set us up for the start of this season, what are the markets telling us right now? Analyst Sue Martin says international conflict helping the prices of grains, keeping the U.S. price competitive. She also gives us predictions on what early fall weather is expected.
And part of our situation with prices remaining so low and not very robust, so to speak, is because Russia's got to pay for a war, and therefore their values of wheat are low and have been ever since we basically seen them start the war, and we peaked at a high and came down. So we have to compete. And right now, I would say we look at Russia's crop. Even Ukraine's experiencing something similar. It's been very dry, but yet the spring wheat in Russia is thought to be yielding good, but it's very poor quality because they had a lot of rain in that area, and they use that to blend off with. So, you know, not all is great there. And then Ukraine, of course, very dry as well, and less production. So, you know, the global side of the equation sounds like we're still going to have plenty of wheat, but right now, I would say maybe the U.S. is a little competitive. You know, the southern rust, if you're north of I-70, the southern rust is really taking a toll. And I would have to say, you know, if you have a severe case of southern rust, it can take 45% of your yield. And the good thing about the southern rust is that it does not winter over like tar spot does. So that will be the good side of it. But still, it's bringing crops home quicker. I've heard reports out of Illinois where the stock condition is not good and stocks are falling over because of it. So it's going to be an interesting time, but it certainly, I think, has all of a sudden gotten everyone thinking the yield's going down and just how much is it going down. Now we're arid and dry now, but the weather sources that we're following that we have found to be very accurate this year and have been for probably the last 3 years are predicting that by mid-September we're going to turn cooler and wetter. Not a good thing for if you're wanting to harvest beans or corn. And I think that when you're already starting to look at the greatest yield potential, and now you're ratcheting it back, and then if we turn wet, I think all of a sudden the commercials, the elevators and what have you, and ethanol plants are going to think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to improve this basis to see if I can get them to try to bring me something. And of course, we all know that there's plenty of bin space on farms available now too.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Seems row crops faring pretty well right now, but if predictions of a cool, wet fall come to fruition, we could very well see prices rise significantly as the predicted heavy grain harvest this year doesn't live up to expectations.